that's our camp's theme for this year, and I think it's a very important question to ask. And if you ask me, jazz is a language, African American language originally, music of the African American people that was has become an artistic music. Some may say America's classical music. I strongly agree with that. And I think it's very important to understand that this is a language. And I feel that oftentimes it's overlooked. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that and how can we learn from it. So like I said, jazz is a language, and how can we learn a language? How many languages do you guys speak? I think learning jazz is really just like learning any other language. And how do you learn a language? How does a baby learn a language? When babies first learn to speak, I got news for you. They don't learn from books. No. They learn by listening to their parents and imitating them and trying to copy what they do and how they speak. And in my short experience in music, I find more and more that this is how music should be taught too. And I think if you look at the jazz history, you can see a lot of very strong examples. A lot of musicians that didn't even know how to read or write music, but had so much music in their heads and in their ears. And I'm not here to discourage you from learning how to read music or learn theory. Not at all. I strongly encourage you to do that. But this is not what jazz is about, if you ask me. I think this music, in its very basic form, is a music of listening and being able to interact and being able to play music by heart. When I saw a lot of my heroes play on stage, they didn't have any music. They didn't read music because they learned tons of music by heart. And one of the first answers, if you ask me, how does jazz connect us all? And I think one of the very basic, it's a language that people can speak this language in Japan, in Indonesia, in the United States, in Israel, in Turkey, in Palestine. And they all can come to one room and connect with each other immediately if they speak the same language, the language of jazz. So if you want to speak the language of jazz, you really need to become familiar, to make yourself super familiar with the history of jazz, including all the recordings. And speaking of that, I feel like nowadays there's really no excuse not to do it, because all the music that is available today online is just, you guys have it so easy. I mean, I hate to say it, but when I was young, just in order to get a new album, first of all, I had to save money. I think in Japan it's still kind of like that, but I had to save money and then take a bus to go to the next town and see whatever CDs they had, and I always used to grab something, and that CD always used to like fill my world with joy for and I feel that, of course, that's gone, but there's also an advantage of that. So everything that's available today, use it. And listen to as many recordings of jazz that you can. Especially, I would suggest early jazz and bebop and more of the tradition. The more you become familiar with the tradition, the more you can build. Like any language, you need to learn the basics of the history. Only, like Jimmy Heath used to say, we stand upon our ancestors' shoulders, because everything we do is based on what came before us. So Like I said before, another side of it is repertoire. All the great jazz musicians that I know have learned a lot, many songs. And we say songs, but when we talk about jazz repertoire, normally there are two kinds of animals. One is what we call the jazz tunes. Jazz tunes, in my book at least, are jazz tunes that were written by jazz musicians. Some songs that were written by Duke Ellington, songs that were written by Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker. All of those are great composers and have a lot. Miles Davis, of course, Bill Evans. Most of those guys, Cannonball. I'm dropping so many names. Joe Henderson, Kenny Dorham. All those guys used to be great writers. And it's somehow like in the jam session and in the jazz school environment, we always tend to play the same songs, and that kind of makes me sad because there are a lot of great jazz tunes by great composers that are often overlooked. So learn the history of the recordings of jazz, and when you hear a tune that you like, go and learn it. And when you learn it, really learn it. And that's true for any tune that you're going to learn. In any style of music, make sure that you know it perfectly. Make sure you have the chords perfectly and flawlessly, and make sure you have the melody, that you know the melody perfectly. Those are the jazz tunes. When you learn the jazz tunes, you want to learn them from the original version. If you want to learn a Charlie Parker tune, learn it from Charlie Parker. Don't learn it from Joe Lovano. I love Joe Lovano, but Joe Lovano would tell you the same thing. You want to learn the original. You don't want to learn somebody else's version of a song. I mean, you want to, but only after you check out the original. Okay? So I encourage all of you to make it a habit to learn those tunes on a regular basis. And now, when we go to the other side of the equation, we have the American Songbook. The American Songbook is a beautiful thing. And it's many beautiful songs. Most of them I don't even know. I know a couple of hundred, maybe even more, of those beautiful songs that originate in American films, in American Broadway theater plays from the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. A lot of beautiful songs. Sometimes the lyrics sound a little funny in our context, but guys, I encourage everybody, if you learn a song, and it doesn't matter if you're a singer, if you're a guitar player, or if you're a flute player, learn the lyrics. We all should know the lyrics to all the songs that I mean, of course, I don't know all the lyrics to all the songs, but I always try to learn them whenever they're possible. A lot of times, like if I just sometimes the best way to learn a tune, whether it's a jazz tune or a standard, is just by listening to it a lot. I don't know if it happens to you that when you're learning a song, just listen to it many times, and then like after a while you don't need to do anything because it's already there. So listening, and a lot of times if you listen, you learn the lyrics. And playing a song and playing it after you've learned the lyrics is such a powerful, it just makes it so much better. I oftentimes go to a jam session and I hear a guitar player or a saxophone player or anybody play a tune, and I can tell you, man, he doesn't know the lyrics. Sometimes I can tell that they don't know the chords too. But yeah, like, of course, there's the famous story about Dexter Gordon that one time stopped in the middle of a ballad, and somebody asked him, hey, what happened? Why did you stop? He said, I forgot the lyrics. And that's pretty deep if you think about it. And all those great players, listen to how they play the melodies, not just the solos. How, like, take a song and listen to many different versions and how people like interpret it different. So this is something that all of you guys should be doing on a regular basis as part of your practice, is learning tunes. Okay? Be the guy that knows like all the tunes. And you know what? Something that I kind of kept with me as I go is I have this list on my notebook that, like, every time I'm in a situation where somebody calls a tune that I don't know, I will write it down, and I'll immediately go home and try to learn it as fast as I can. And because I hate something that I don't like to be, is to be in that situation where somebody calls a tune that I don't know. So I call it the list of shame, and I always enjoy adding stuff. Sometimes I could be on a gig, to listen to somebody's gig and go to hear a friend, and they're playing a tune that I know, that I don't know. And I'm writing it down, and I'm going home and learning it. So repertoire is a very, very crucial part of being a jazz musician. You cannot, I mean, you can, but I don't think I don't know what's the value of not learning the history and the tradition. Even, I mean, I love modern jazz too, and I love everything, but I feel like the best artists are the ones that really, really studied the history too. And the same thing goes to improvisation and to linear playing too. Is like study the masters really, really well and try to copy what they did. That's what I've been doing. And then when I'm learning a new song, I always try to stick with it for a long time. Like a lot of times students would say, "Yeah, I've learned this song, but I don't remember it." So that's actually, that happens only because of one thing, that you didn't spend enough time with it. You didn't repeat it. And that sometimes, if you learn a new song, what I recommend doing is playing it, first of all, playing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Let's say, here's a new tune that I learned. So this is something that I like to do. You can do it with the metronome. Just play the song with the metronome. Just improvise. Sometimes I like to just create like a loop and play along to it. But really spend time with the song. It's okay. Give it as much time as it needs. With time, the more tunes that you will learn, the much easier it will become learning them. You will become so fast. I mean, the same thing goes for solo transcriptions, which is another huge subject in learning the language of the bebop, for example. You want to transcribe, but it's very, very important to take your time with it. Give it all the time that it needs. Even if one song takes you 2 weeks to learn, that's okay. But just do it every day, and first of all, you'll strengthen your ears, you'll strengthen your memory, you'll do a lot of great things for yourself. So to me, this is how jazz connects us all, and it does connect us all because I speak the language of jazz, and I have many beautiful connections thanks to the language of jazz in the world. So I encourage you guys to study the language of jazz enjoy it.